Naradunaya Hari Hari Kori Naradunaya Hari Hari Kori Naradunaya
AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Shripada Paramahamsa Parivajacharya Ashtadhara Shata Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Pramse Gaura Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasali Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Radha Govardhan ki jai, Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadvip Dham ki jai, Mathura Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Tulasi Devi ki jai, Jamuna Maya ki jai, Ganga Maya ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the Son of devotees. All glories to the Son of devotees. All glories to the Son of devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga.
मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सखागणा रघुनाथां विद्धं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवम् श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सखागणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेशनाथ नमोस्तुते तत्त्वकाञ्चन गौराङ्गे राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी कृष्णभानुसुते देवी नमामि हरिप्रिये आंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So who knows where we're reading from?
Chapter 6.
I thought so too.
Chapter 2?
I remember Valmiki read this text 32. I guess we'll just start after that.
Okay, just pick up.
Text 33.
2.33.
Huh?
2.33.
6.
6.33.
Chapter 6. Yeah, we lost track, so start from here again. Okay, we'll read the Sanskrit and English translations together. Chapter 6, text 33. Samkhya Yoga. Arjuna Uvacha Yoyam Yagastaya Prokta Samkhya Madhusudana Itasyaham Napashyami Chanchalatatim Sthiram. Arjuna said, O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. Text 34. Chanchala Yamana Krishna Pramanti Balavajidam Tasyaham Nigraham Manye Vayurva Sadushkaram. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna, and to subdue it seems to me more difficult than controlling the wind. 35. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Asanchayam Mahabaho Manodurviyakam Chalam Abhyasena Tukanteya Vairagyena Chakriya. The Blessed Lord said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by constant practice and by detachment. 36. Asamyatmana yogo dushra iti vemati vishatmana tu yadha shakyo aptam upayataha. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by right means is assured of success. That is my opinion. 37. Arjuna Uvacha Ayati Shalayogeto Yogashalitmanasaha Aprabhya Yoga Samsiddhim Kamapati Krishna Gacchati. Arjuna said, what is the destination of the man of faith who does not persevere, who is in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness, and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? Text 38. Kachino payam viprashtas chinapram ganashyati aparashto mahabaho vimuro brahmanapati. Almighty Lord Krishna, does not such a man being deviated from the path of transcendence perish like a riving cloud with no position in any sphere? Etam samshayam Krishna chaitam arhas visheshataha pradanya samshayasya chaitamahya upadyate. This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for yourself, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. Text 40. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Partanayeha Amutra Gnashastasya Vidyate Nahi Kalyan Krikashchit Durgata Krikashchit. The Blessed Lord said, Son of Pritha, both a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet destruction, either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, like my friend, is never overcome by evil. 41. Prapya punya kritam lokan ushika shashvati masaha shochinam srimatam dehe yoga prashto vijayate. The unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people, or into a family of rich aristocracy. Text 42. Atava yoginam eva kule bhavati dhimata edadhira vatara loke chaitanya yidrisham. Or he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Verily, such a birth is rare in this world. 43. Tatrathambuli samyoram labhapar vadekam yitapeksha bhuya samsito kiranandana. And taking such a birth, he again revives the divine consciousness of his previous life. He tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru. Text 44. Purvamyasya tenaiva hridaya vashopisa chiyasya apiyogasya shabdam brahma vivartate. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist striving for yoga stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. Where do we start at?
33.
Oh. So then we'll stop there. So we'll go back to text 33. Arjuna said, O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The system of mysticism described by Lord Krishna to Arjuna, beginning with the words Shuchal Veshe and ending with Yogi Pranama, is here being rejected by Arjuna out of a feeling of inability. It is not possible for an ordinary man to leave home and go to a secluded place in the mountains or jungles to practice yoga in this age of Kali. The present age is characterized by a bitter struggle for a life of short duration. People are not serious about self-realization even by simple, practical means, and what to speak of this difficult yoga system, which regulates the mode of living, the manner of sitting, selection of place, and detachment of the mind from material engagements. As a practical man, Arjuna thought it was impossible to follow this system of yoga. even though he was favorably endowed in many ways. He belonged to the royal family and was highly elevated in terms of numerous qualities. He was a great warrior, he had great longevity, and above all, he was the most intimate friend of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 5,000 years ago, Arjuna had much better facilities than we do now, yet he refused to accept the system of yoga. In fact, we do not find any record in history of his practicing it at any time. Therefore, this system must be considered generally impossible in this age of Kali. Of course, it may be possible for some very few, rare men, but for the people in general, it is an impossible proposal. If this were so 5,000 years ago, then what of the present day? Those who are imitating this yoga system in different so-called schools and societies, although complacent, are certainly wasting their time. They are completely in ignorance of the desired goal. So, if we're trying to get to a certain destination, a certain place, or acquire a certain object, then there's a certain means to take to get to that place, to get to that thing. People go to school for engineering, and usually the way they look at problems is they do reverse engineering. This is the goal, this is what we want to get, this is the solution, and how do we get there so that we work ourselves back. So, we also have that in devotional service. We have a clear-cut knowledge of what life is, what the point is, what the purpose is, and how everything relates to that. And the term for this is called Sambandha. Sambandha, we often hear in a Vaishnava context, means relationship, because ultimately the goal with Krishna is relationship. But the very word Sambandha means some. Bandha means lock, sam is like all, it's like how everything fits together. So essentially, a clear-cut understanding of what life is. So then there's avideya and prayojana. Avideya is the means to get there. So this is the reverse engineering. You actually understand the process you take to get there. In prayojana, you have an understanding of what that perfection actually looks like. So, this is essential knowledge to have as we endeavor on the spiritual path. But in this chapter 6, Krishna is speaking about Samkhya Yoga. And what is he telling to Arjuna before this? He's telling Arjuna, what did he say?
Sit in a secular place, meditate.
Yes. Sit, meditate, control your mind. Bhakta, sit. Control your mind. Some schools, they do this. They sit and they meditate, and then there's a teacher that stands over them with a stick. A stick. It's not the bhakti stick, it's just a normal stick. And as soon as there's a deviation of focus, of concentration, then they get whacked with a stick. You think that would be an easy way to meditate? Should we get a stick? No, so, controlling the mind is very difficult. And Prabhupada's making the point that it's very difficult for Arjuna, who is such a great warrior, who has so much vigor and concentration and focus. So what to speak of us? And then Prabhupada makes the point that this may be possible for a very select few, very rare people of society. But for the general masses, this is impossible. But people are attracted to this still. Why? Why is it that we're going out and spreading the holy names and chanting, but it seems like more people are, at least from my perspective, more people are attracted to sit in silence and meditate and kind of take up this Ashtanga yoga? Huh? Well, yeah, that's useful knowledge, but in essence, it's like one could follow this Ashtanga yoga, but there's not really a clear-cut
vision of the goal of what is to be achieved and how to actually get there. And once one understands the goal, the process to actually take. So as we approach devotional service and meet devotees from day one, we can understand that there's a goal to life. What's the goal? That's partially there. Can you go a little further? Yes, to align ourselves with our eternal occupation as a servant of Krishna, or in other words, to develop love of Krishna is the goal. Shri Gaura Nitai Ki Jai. So in day one, we can hear the goal is to awaken your dormant love of Krishna. Then you can also hear how you do that. And how do we do that? Chanting Hare Krishna. Yes, devotional service. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedanam. But the Yuga Dharma of this age is chanting Hare Krishna. So we put emphasis on chanting Hare Krishna. So day one, you know the goal of life and the means of how to get there. So it takes away all the mystical guesswork of, I think it's like this, and I had this experience, and I think if I just keep doing this will. No, you chant Hare Krishna and purify yourself, and so it takes away all that guesswork, so that when you apply the process, what happens? All the impurities come out, all the things that are resisting us from actually entering into this loving relationship with Krishna. Whereas if I just follow this meditation and yoga and I'm not doing it in a really bona fide way, it's like I do it a little bit to help me have a clear mind so I can enjoy sex life better, or so I can do my job better, or I can, gamble better. We can use these same principles of yoga for mundane things. But at the same time, it's not that everything offered through that yoga system has to be rejected as we take out the path of devotional service, but we have to understand what the goal of life is, the means to get there, and see what is recommended by our Vaishnava acharyas. And they are very clearly recommending devotional service and the chanting of the holy names. And as we do that in the association with devotees, we can make rapid progress. Does everybody here feel like they're making rapid progress? Yes, no? Some yeses, some no's. Good, I like the honesty. Some deferred answers. But we are making rapid progress. We are, whether we can see it or not. Sometimes we have to stop and take a look at where we came from and see how much progress we've actually made. I view it as like climbing up a steep mountain. And you're climbing and it's tough, it's steep, you're tired, there's like rocks, there's thorns, you slip a little and you keep going and you're like, man, nothing's happening. This is just a waste of time. I might as well give up and go back down the mountain because at least I know what's there. But sometimes we have to stop and look and turn around and we'll see, oh wow, I actually have made some progress. I have some spiritual understanding. I have a little glimmer of hope of controlling the mind. And we say, okay, I have no control of my mind, but just waking up regular every day at the same time, taking prasadam at the same time every day, sitting and chanting, or even walking or running and chanting, or doing however you chant, chanting every single day. It's regularity. It's practices that are bringing us more into sattva gun, because we're doing it regularly and in consistency, but more important than sattva gun, it's connected to Lord Krishna. So because that, it's completely transcendental. So the more we stick with it, then the more purification is there. But when we get frustrated and focus so much on how I'm not making progress, what's going to happen? Krishna says, Dhyayato Vishayam Pumsa Sangastesha Vajayate. When we dwell on something, and he's talking specifically about sense objects, it leads to lust and so on, but anything for that matter, when we dwell on it, it's adding that fuel to our consciousness. There's a saying, what is it, where attention goes, energy flows. So if I'm putting all my attention on, my mind is so disturbed, I'm not making advancement, this is a struggle, is this worth it? Then where is the energy going to flow to? It's going to seek some kind of relief. And generally speaking, what we know of a relief is however we've associated with the modes of material nature. So I might think of drugs or alcohol, women, my family back home, whatever it is that I'm used to find comfort, of relief of my suffering. But that's just temporary. And what happens when we do temporary things? Problems come back. It's like taking the weed, and Prabhu, we need you to go outside and cut the grass. There's some weeds over there, get rid of the weeds. And instead of digging up the weeds, you just cut them down, like you're cutting the grass. So what happens? The weeds come back. And you know what happens when they come back? They come back stronger. Because if you cut down just the little plant, what happens? The root is still growing. So we're not getting to the root. But that root, somebody comes into my life and starts wiggling at that root, and trying to pull out, the things that are disturbing me, I'm actually attached to the disturbance. Believe it or not, the same things that are disturbing us now, more often than not, we used to take pleasure in. For instance, I'm disturbed of lust now, only because I'm aware of how negatively it entraps me in material existence. Whereas before, lust was considered a fun, exciting, exotic thing. So, same things we used to enjoy, now we view as, it's disturbing me. It's because we were completely covered over in the modes of material nature. And Krishna says, he says, Rajogun, the mode of passion, is born of unlimited desires. This unlimited desires to enjoy, to control, to do. So we have to overcome this. We have to kill desires. Is that our process? So what do we do with the desires? Yes, we dovetail them. We transform them into desires that are pleasing to Krishna and the devotees. If before I used to write books, cool, write for Krishna. If I was an artist, we can draw pictures for Krishna. But some habits that we had, we have to give up. We have to give up. So, being in devotional service is like being in the shower. All of my impurities are coming to the surface and I'm so frustrated and I feel like I'm not a complete person. I feel like I'm not whole. It's a struggle. I'm always making offenses. How can anybody ever like me or connect with me? Because I'm just so disturbed. But guess what? Most of the other people are also disturbed. It's the life of a neophyte sadhaka. But who's not disturbed? Srila Prabhupada. Who's not disturbed? The Guru. So if we work together to serve the mission of Srila Prabhupada, if we work together to serve the Guru, if we work together and make that the foundation of our life, of our friendships, then we can have the most deepest connections with everybody around us that we've been craving our whole life. Otherwise, we find some connection because we're lonely and we're disturbed, and we find somebody that resonates with our disturbance and agitates it in other ways. It's interesting, right? Like many people find a relationship. They get in a relationship, man and women. They love each other. They get very deep into it. But then within a short time, that quote unquote love fades away, and then they become angry at each other and like hate each other and yell at each other, fight, and then leave. This is the mode of passion. We're thinking we're doing this thing for enjoyment, but we're really not seeing the bigger picture of life. We're ignoring that to try to enjoy, but then it always comes back to bite us. So Arjuna is rejecting the notion of controlling the mind. Does that mean we should also reject trying to control the mind? How does Krishna respond when Arjuna says it's impossible? We just read it. Constant practice and detachment. Practice and detachment. Also in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where Krishna is speaking to Uddhava, he's also talking about controlling the mind. And he describes controlling the mind like taming a wild horse. Have you guys ever seen somebody like try to break a wild horse? At least like in the movies. I've seen movies where they try to do this. They get, a horse who's like wild, running free, all over the land, doing his own thing, so strong, independent. And then they put him in this little ring. And then, a cowboy has to go out there with a rope, lasso the horse. The horse is fighting, he's running. And then he has to grab the lasso, jump on the back of the horse, and then ride the horse. The horse is trying to kick him off, throw him off like anything by any means. And then that guy's sitting there just controlling his movements until the horse realizes that, oh, I'm defeated. I can't win this battle. So let me cooperate. At least that will be nice. So Krishna, he describes that sometimes you have to let the mind do its thing. It has to wander this way because it's fighting and it's too much of a fight and you just can't even deal with it. And if you try to resist, it's like, it will like malfunction, like explode. So sometimes you have to take a step back and let it go over there. And then you see where it's going. And then right when you see it, you bring it back to where it needs to go. Practice and detachment. But we have to be detached. I'm not my mind. The things that are connected with my mind, that it's perceiving, thinking, feeling, willing, that's disturbing, it's not me. It's easy to like have a thought that disturbs us, and then that leads to another thought, and that thought disturbs us, and then another thought, and then another thought, and all of a sudden we're sitting there just like completely lost in our mind, and we don't even know how it started to begin with. But if we're detached, seeing that like I'm not my mind, that's not me, and your mind wanders, and you're like, okay, the mind's silly, crazy thing, it wanders away, and okay, but that's not where I want it to go. So it's okay that it wandered away, but I'm trying to focus here. This is where I'm trying to put my focus. Why is it this is where I'm trying to put my focus? Because this is the solution to overcome the mind. Like I mentioned earlier, if I'm dwelling on all the negative things, then where this attention goes, energy flows. But if we put our attention on Krishna, chanting the holy names, understanding this transcendental knowledge, on associating with the devotees nicely and appreciating them, then where does the energy go and where does it flow? It flows in a very nice way. Somebody walks in the room and I'm angry with them. It's like immediately there's like not a flow of energy. It's like I don't want to look at them. I don't want to talk to them. They just drive me crazy, just them being there. But your friend walks in the room and you're like, oh, Hare Krishna, how's it going? Oh, nice to see you. It's a loving flow of energy. So where we put our attention, energy flows. And if we're not putting our attention in a positive way, then this energy is flowing to not the greatest places. So we have to control the mind. And Prabhupada is alluding to in this purport that the best way to control the mind is simply by chanting Hare Krishna. But sometimes it may be a struggle for us who are new on the path to try to sit and Hare Krishna, my mind's wandering and thinking about this, thinking about that. It's interesting, many times I've noticed being on the mental platform so deep that when I try to chant, I'm not even aware that my mind's wandering away. But to actually bring attention to, okay, making a sankalpa, I'm going to focus on the holy name for the pleasure of Krishna. And when I have that determination, then being aware of when our mind actually wanders away. Oh, right now my mouth is saying Hare Krishna, but my mind's thinking about, where I'm going to be in 5 years, or how I'm going to leave, this room because it's too hot, or whatever it is. So being aware of when it wanders, and then detach ourselves from that and bring it back to what we're trying to focus on, which is the holy name, because the holy name of Krishna is none different from Krishna. And when we chant Hare Krishna, it's not that it's simply just a mechanical process. It should really be calling out the Krishna. If we really are calling out the Krishna, then Krishna is right there to reciprocate with us. But we have to make the endeavor. We have to make the endeavor to really call out and depend upon Krishna. Otherwise, it's very easy to just go on practicing this externals of devotional service, and it seems very mechanical and ritualistic and dry, boring, no taste. So we have to go deeper into our chanting, deeper in our pondering of this philosophy, of our questioning, of our understanding, exploring our doubts that we may face of Krishna consciousness. It's interesting because we're confronted with something which is the truth, and we have a little bit of faith in it for whatever reason, but then we may be afraid to admit our doubts with it because, I can't have doubts, this is it. But as we mature more, we'll be more honest, Krishna's saying this, but I doubt whether that's true. And then we actually try to investigate and understand. And Krishna, he talks about slashing these doubts with the weapon of transcendental knowledge. So we don't simply gather to read and hear for entertainment purposes. One does not read the Bhagavatam for entertainment purposes. Although, I notice within myself, and I've heard with others, we may pick up the Bhagavatam, and the tendency is like, man, I got to finish the Bhagavatam. I really got to get through it. But it's like, generally we're reading with this mood of entertainment. It's this thing that I'm trying to enjoy. Which is nice because it's the Bhagavatam. It'll purify us. But there's some devotees who've read the Bhagavatam 10, 15, 20, 30 times. That's devotion. Getting stuck on one chapter of the Bhagavatam where you're on one chapter for a month because you're just exploring everything that's within that chapter, going very deep. This is how we sharpen our mind with transcendental knowledge. And as we accrue more transcendental knowledge, it is quite literally like a sword that will slash through our ignorance. So every day we have to hear, and we have to question, we have to take it deeply into our hearts. Otherwise, we can always just be on the surface and never penetrate. The example is given like a honey bottle. I throw Prabhu a bottle of honey. I'm like, here, try it. Isn't it sweet? And he starts licking the outside of the bottle. Everybody's like, what are you doing? That's crazy. Everybody knows you got to open it up. But similarly with Bhakti Yoga, we have to open it up. We have to go deeper. We have to give our heart to Krishna. We have to pray to Krishna. We have to depend upon Krishna. We have to use our mind to take in this knowledge of what Krishna is saying. Otherwise, if we're just thinking all day long about, I'm so disturbed, I'm so frustrated, I'm so agitated, I'm so lusty, I want to do this, I want to do that, well, how will we ever be happy? I've heard many devotees, senior devotees say, you could walk into a brahmacharya ashram and you could see, which devotees are thinking about material desires and which ones are not. Because the ones who aren't thinking about material desires and they're just surrendered to serving Krishna, they're happy. They have no cares. They have no worries. It's like Hari Bol, Hari Krishna. But the ones who are harboring all these complex desires and ideas, they're visibly agitated. So we have to really just open up to Krishna and depend upon Krishna and take shelter of Krishna. And taking shelter of Krishna comes in many different forms. Reading, studying, associating with devotees, Harinam, prasadam distribution, cooking, doing service. When we rest, it's not that we just rest for our own pleasure, we rest for Krishna. Shower for Krishna, bathe for Krishna, cleanse for Krishna, everything for Krishna. In this way, we'll always be connected to Krishna. So, just a few thoughts on these verses. We could say more. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts or comments or questions. We could have a discussion, or otherwise I could keep reading, keep speaking. Yes, Prabhuji. Krishna, he describes lust as the enemy, and it has taken different strategic places within our system, you could say. Within the mind, the intelligence, and the senses. So in that sense, some scars can be stored not just within the mind, but in our intelligence, even with our senses, having certain connections with certain activities. I was listening to something earlier this morning, and the question was raised, can one have like a good heart but a bad mind? And like a good-hearted person, but like, a crazy mind. And the reply was given, yeah, because like due to like somebody may be like a good-hearted person and they mean well and they want to do well for others, but due to all the samskaras that they've had in their consciousness from this life and previous lives that's stored in the mind is a little haywire. So it's interesting. But we should never doubt the process of devotional service. We can hear many stories of many devotees who have been purified from like way worse situations than we find ourselves in. See, this is the tendency of the conditioned soul and the false ego. Nobody's as bad off as me. I'm the worst. I have so many problems in my mind and my consciousness. One time, one disciple was talking to Prabhupada, and he was talking, I think it was Satsvaru Maharaj, but I'm not sure. He said, Prabhupada, I'm the most fallen. Prabhupada was like, no, you're not the most anything. But you're not you're not the most anything. So this is the condition of like the false ego, the conditioned soul. If I'm contaminated and I accept I'm contaminated, I'm the most contaminated. I'm the most just shift your energy from being the most contaminated, most disturbed, and shift your energy towards Krishna, and then you won't be so disturbed. So if we accept that position of being a servant, then all of a sudden it's good. But yeah, all these samskaras in the mind can create impediments. But yeah, I don't know. I touched your question and I started talking about some other things. So
I could get an understanding, but basically, it's a mind, intelligence, and senses where the vasanas what we have exist, or the previous samskaras exist, and these are those strategic points where essentially we need to work upon or try to cut using the chanting process.
Yeah, what does Krishna
Process of
say?
chanting.
It's like the end of chapter 3. It says, Evam Bude Param Bhutva Samstabatmanamatmana Jahi Shatru Mahabaho Kama Rupam Darasadam. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to material senses, mind, and intelligence, one should control the lower self by the higher self, and thus by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So we have to see what lust is, where it's sitting, see that we're not the mind. We're not the intelligence. We're definitely not the senses. And we have to control the lower self. So we have to see where those lower activities lead to, and that a higher path is clearly better. So then, like Native Americans, they'd have a saying that, like, within us, there's these two wolves fighting. Yes, good dog and bad dog. And which one ever wins is the one we feed the most. So that's a sadhaka. That's what we're doing. Every day we have the option to feed the bad wolf. I don't want to wake up today. I don't want to come to the temple. I don't want to chant japa. I don't want to do this. I don't want to talk to this guy, you know. But then we have the same opportunity to feed that good wolf. And the more we do that day in, day out, it will have profound effects on our consciousness. In this short time, actually, if we can chant free from the offenses, the holy name is so powerful, then it can transform our consciousness rapidly. But only due to us maintaining offensive nature. It's like creating a dampening. You know, it's like trying to start firewood into fire, but we're putting water on one side. So one could say, I'm so offensive though, so you know I'm not making any progress because I'm always dousing it with water, so I should just not do it. If we don't do that, there's only going to be water and we're just going to drown. Drowned in our own filth and drowned in our own sorrow. Yeah, we have to understand the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna gives the basic knowledge to understand. And if we can't understand, approach a devotee and, you know, learn together. Easy to learn in pairs. So, any other thoughts or comments, questions, challenges, doubts? This Prabhu has something to note. Sure.
Hare Krishna. Maybe you can expand on this because it kind of falls in line with this nice point that you made about how one might have a conditioned mind, but at the core of everyone, we're good-natured people. That's the nature of the soul. So I heard a saying. Was that your point?
You can continue.
Well, maybe you can correct me.
No, there's no correction. I was just laughing because Prabhupada was talking about, like, we're all going to have a reunion in the spiritual world, you know, except for Mr. Nair.
I see. Okay.
For the most part, yes, people are good-natured, but it's covered overall by the modes of nature. So I'm just making a joke.
For sure.
Prabhupada's joke.
Okay. Well, I heard something nice today that a saintly person should love the diseased but hate the disease.
It's a Christian saying: hate the sinner, hate the sin, don't hate the sinner.
I really like that. Maybe you can let me know if that's applicable to what we're doing and the outlook that we should have with our devotees, with ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, how else can we have this unless we have transcendental knowledge? You know, I have to distance myself from my false ego so I can see clearly what's going on. That, you know, this verse that we read last time when Valmiki was here. Mapamina sarvatra samam pashyati arjuna sukham vayadi vadukam yogi paramomata. He is a perfect yogi who by comparison to his own self sees the true equality of all beings both in their happiness and distress. So if we haven't seen with comparison to our own self overcoming our own obstacles, then it's very easy to be implicated in them. So then I act in a way, and then this person acts in a way, then I become angry and disturbed because they're acting in this way, and then that makes them disturbed and angry, rather than like, oh, you know, I know what it's like to be lusty and agitated and disturbed and like, or puffed up with pride and thinking, you know, I'm great, or I've seen other people in my life that have acted this way. Should I hate this person No, the person is a soul, a living entity. Krishna loves that person very much. So for me to throw salt on that person, to put them down, be angry at them, how is that pleasing to Krishna? How is it pleasing to our own self? It's not pleasing to our own self. Like I mentioned, I walk into a room and I see a person who I just don't like and I don't get along with. It's like, I'm walking around the corner, I'm like, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then you walk in the room, you're like, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I can't talk to this person. How is that pleasing to our own self, let alone pleasing to them? So how to overcome that? Yeah, we have to see that we're all conditioned and that this devotee is trying his best. He's struggling with other things and I'm struggling with my own things. Why should I make his life more difficult by being inimical or mean or holding some anger or holding the thought that I'm better than them and I need to teach them and correct them when that's not my position to be? So it goes both ways always. And Krishna, he says, I forget where, but basically, the person who's on that transcendental platform, he doesn't disturb anyone and he's liked by everyone. In the Shad Goswami Astakam, it talks about how the 6 Goswamis were both dear to the gentle and the ruffians. Meaning that like high-class brahmanas appreciated them and liked them, and also like poor like dog-eater people like them. And why is that? Because they're non-envious. So typically, we're envious of each other. I'm envious of this person because he's acting in some way and it irritates me in some way because deep down it's like I have this disturbance and I want it, or I'm envious in the sense of like I think I'm better than them and I'm able to like assert my position. Anyways, it's like we have to see that we're all in this together and we can help each other, and that becomes a source of strength. But we have to put aside our differences. How do we do that? We have to put the service to Krishna in the middle. Huh? Yes, you have to put a higher purpose, because when we put ourself in the middle, it's always self-centered and it's always contaminated. So very much hate the sin and not the sinner. Hate the lust, because Krishna says lust is just insatiable. It never brings happiness. Hate this, mental disturbances. Hate all these things, but always be tolerant to see above that and see that this person is a spirit soul and Krishna loves them. So I should also somewhere deep in the depths of my heart try to find some little kind of love and appreciation for them. So unless anybody has any other final comments or thoughts, we can end here. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Gauranatai Ki Jai, Vanchakapatru Bhyascha Kipas Nibi Vachapatitanam Pavani Vaishnavi Namo Namah.